You can just see the drama. You can see the hierarchies, the false hierarchies. You can see the lack of inclusivity. You can see the lack of purity of soul. And when you see that, you can feel it, especially if you're very in tune. And again, you've been doing that shadow work and working on yourself. You can see that so many of these places are not as love and light as they pretend to be. Peace and love, beautiful beings. My name is Layla Wynn, Chosen Goddess. Welcome to my channel, Let Go My Ego, where we talk about all topics that have to do with letting go of the ego and letting our heart and our soul lead the way. So today's topic is going to be a really juicy one, a really good one, and it's very, very prevalent and very prominent nowadays in the spiritual community. And I want to talk about why so many people are leaving spirituality and going back to religion. It is, and it's, I wouldn't say an epidemic, but you're seeing it very often that a lot of people have been turned off by new age spirituality, and rightfully so. And disclaimer, I am not going back to religion. In case you were wondering, absolutely not. I got out of the religious paradigm for a reason, those religious dogma and constructs for a reason, because there's so much hypocrisy. But on the other end of the spectrum, there's also a lot of hypocrisy in the new age spirituality. And we're going to talk about that today and really kind of just help you get to the nitty gritty. If you've been turned off by new age spirituality and you're feeling lost and you're feeling like you haven't manifested, right? That's another thing. Actually, that's a video for another day that I'm going to talk about, is the pretty much the psyop of manifestation and how we've been lied to, and how it's going to be called the manifestation trap. But that's another topic for another day, but we'll talk about it a little bit in this video. But yes, let's get into it. And as usual, I have my handy dandy notebook and I have my notes. So if you see me looking down, I'm just referencing all of my notes, and I try to do my best to just give you all that eye contact, because a lot of this, all these notes come from me. Yeah, just to be able to speak from the heart and speak from my soul and my conscious mind is really, to me, more profound than just looking at notes. But I need both. That's just how my mind works. So bear with me. And again, thank you all for being here. So let's get into it. So let's start with what I call the duality in spirituality. And I'm going to be starting a series about this soon. So stay tuned, where I'm going to have some beautiful guests on here and there, which I'm really, really excited about. And yeah, it's going to be wonderful. So yeah, we'll get into it. So the duality in spirituality. So let's talk about the misunderstanding regarding many spiritual concepts and truths. There has been a lot of distortion in spiritual knowledge, so-called knowledge, spiritual truth, spiritual so-called wisdom, right? Spiritual concepts that a lot of people have taken on, but they really do not know these truths, so-called truths, right, from direct experience. And also some of these truths have a lot of nuance that is not really being talked about. So I have a couple examples. Like, one spiritual concept is that there's no right or wrong. And there's absolutely in the human experience, right or wrong. In the human experience, I think you need, and this is just my perspective, and this is why it's so beautiful to think for yourself. So when I hear people saying things like there's no right or wrong, I understand that, and I understand that from a higher perspective. And what I do know is the divine wants us all to be pure-hearted, loving beings, and to do what's right from our heart and our soul, to have a level of integrity, to have a level of awareness, self-awareness, and conscientiousness, where we realize that we're all connected and that no one is above anyone or no one is below anyone, right? With these false hierarchies in this false matrix. So concepts like that is a primary example of how we can easily be distorted and caught up in those type of things where we kind of become numb or too neutral, so to speak, to things that are injustice, to things that are just downright evil, to things that are wrong, where we're just so neutral that we lose our humanity, where we lose our authenticity, where we lose our truth to speak up and to do something about these things, right? So, yeah, there's been a lot of distortion in a lot of spiritual teachings. And again, when I do the duality and spirituality series, you're going to learn a lot about those teachings and why there's so much distortion, and ultimately how to think for yourself and to trust yourself. So that's really important. And also, people are still worshiping too many idols, and they're pedestalizing different gods and goddesses, angels, archangels, galactic beings, ascended masters, and you name it, rather than ultimately connecting with your own oversoul, connecting directly to the divine and source. And I want to say this, I'm not saying that certain angels or archangels or gods or goddesses don't exist, but the problem is that not all of these beings are benevolent, and a lot of people are simply mimicking and copying what they see other people do, and they're calling on certain beings without having any direct experience for themselves. And I want to say this, to be vulnerable, guilty. I've done it too. I've done it too. And I've completely broken out of that because I realized that it's about my direct experience. And I realized a lot of my intuition, a lot of my intuitive uploads, so to speak, come from my higher self, come from my oversoul. And that is ultimately, you have to realize you are your own teacher, you are your own guru. And also, to be clear on that, it doesn't mean we can't learn from other people. It doesn't mean that other people are not more spiritually advanced or other beings are not more spiritually advanced than us. But never forget to honor your own truth and to cultivate that discernment, to cultivate that intuitive abilities. I'm still working on my intuitive abilities. I wouldn't say I'm even advanced. I'm definitely more seasoned, so to speak, than a lot of people because I can see a lot through those distortions, through those illusions, through those shadows. However, I'm still constantly working on it. So that is another trope in the new age spirituality, is having, it's still a form of hierarchy, of looking at ascended masters or archangels as above us when they're not above us. They're meant to work beside us, the ones that are truly benevolent, the ones that are truly organic and haven't been tampered with themselves and distorted. And the more you do more research and again go within, you'll be able to see those distortions. And one of the primary indicators is, again, look at the state of the spiritual communities and even certain groups and circles of communities. And you can just see the drama. You can see the hierarchies, the false hierarchies. You can see the lack of inclusivity. You can see the lack of purity of soul. And when you see that, you can feel it, especially if you're very in tune. And again, you've been doing that shadow work and working on yourself. You can see that so many of these places are not as love and light as they pretend to be. So, we're going to get into that a little bit as well. A lot of people use spirituality, just like religion, as a mask, as a title, as a cloak for performance, rather than actually embodying and doing the inner work. So that's something to really pay attention to as well. And we'll get a little deeper into that as well. And people are still caught up in the doing rather than the being. So they're doing the yoga, they're doing the breath work, they're doing the sound healing, they're doing the somatic dance, they're doing the retreats. And again, nothing, I say continue to do those things. They are great. They are definitely beneficial. However, the problem is, and this is the issue, is that a lot of people are doing these things as still a form of escape with no true integration, no true embodiment. And even with yoga, for example, yoga means union, really. So people will go on the mat, do this yoga, but they come off the mat, and I'm not saying everybody, but you see these yogis, or even people who are in the gym all the time, but they think they're better than other people. They think they're higher. And it's like, no, yoga means union. You're supposed to take the yoga off the mat. And any of these so-called spiritual practices, right? Take it into the real world. How does it apply? How have you integrated it? And do you even know how to integrate it? That's another thing. So the rabbit hole runs deep with all of this. So it's really, really important that, again, we cultivate that discernment and we question things and we notice how things feel. Another thing is the spiritual glamour. It's the white robes, it's the crystals, it's the altars, it's the whatever, the sage, it's the hosting sacred containers. Mind you, I've never resonated with the word container, and I'm not judging anyone who's using that word, but for me, it's about sacred space. It's about, I don't want to contain anything. I want to be free. I want to be eternal. I want whatever I'm cultivating and whatever I'm creating and whatever beauty I am, whatever magic I'm working up, right? I want that infinite eternal space. Actually, the word eternal is more aligned to affect everyone. So I don't want to contain it. I want it to expand, and I want it to touch all those that it's meant to touch, right? That medicine that I've created. So yeah, spiritual containers. And again, no actual embodiment, no direct divine connection themselves. And when I say no direct divine connection, we all have innately divine connection, but a lot of people haven't, again, refined that. They haven't done enough inner work. They haven't done enough time to sit with self and also work with others who are trusted, who are embodied, who are truly wise and don't just have the knowledge or regurgitating spiritual topics or mimicking or performing, right? People who are actually, they're doing it, right? They're being about it. And we're not talking about perfection. If you're in this human experience, you're never going to be perfect, but it's not about the perfection. It's about the purity. It's about the genuinity. It's about knowing and checking yourself so that way you can get on whatever your path is of dharma, right? Getting out of those loops of karma, of pain and suffering and distortion and being looped. That's what it is. That's why people are going back to religion, because they're in a loop, right? That infinite loop. No, get out the loop and expand yourself and be eternal. And it's going to take time. It's an everyday, every moment self-awareness practice. And like I said, we're not always going to get it right. We're going to so-called fail, right? And that's okay too. That's part of the learning. That's so we can see our shadows and we can go deeper. And also we can get the help and the resources that we need. But the only way you can get help is to be aware that you need it. And then that will lead you to the right people, the right resources, etc. So that was a little bit of a tangent. But yes, that spiritual glamour is something to pay attention to. So don't notice just how it looks and what people are doing. It's how it feels and what are the tangible results in your life. Not just in material things you're manifesting, not just in, I got the man, I got the house, I got the car. Great. But all the while, again, you're disconnected from self. You're not fully connected. Your DNA is not activated, etc. We can go on and on, but this it's going to be. That's why I said the duality and spirituality series that's going to come out is really going to break all of this down. Another thing is that spirituality. This is a good one. Spirituality has been more commercialized. It's more of a business rather than a sacred devotion first. And I want to be clear because I know somebody's going to say this. There's nothing wrong with charging for your services. I absolutely agree. I charge for my services too. However, it's not just about the money. It's not just about gaining followers or clients. This is really heart-centered work. And what you'll find is that people who are really doing this work from the heart, they will make exceptions. They'll try to get their medicine, get their work out to everybody, no matter what their financial situation is, whatever their financial bracket is. It doesn't matter. We'll try to work with everyone, because ultimately, and what I do know in my heart is that as we move into higher states of consciousness as humanity, we're going to move into a state where everyone can receive these services. Because let's be real, if we're honest, even the money aspect, it's still excluding a lot of people. It really is in spiritual teaching. So when we're charging a lot for our services, and mind you, I'm not saying you're not supposed to charge what you're worth way more than any money you can charge anyway. And we're still in an experience where we have to pay bills, we're not out of that experience anyway. So you still have to charge, if you're running a business, because you got to provide for yourself. However, what I do know is that as we're moving into those higher states of consciousness, that we're going to move into where all of these spiritual modalities and things that are meant to truly help people are going to be accessible for all. Because when we charge too much for certain services, you are excluding a population of people that most likely need the services more than than anybody. So right, so we have to be honest about that. So I feel like instead of it just being so focused on being a business or commercialized, it really, you got to recognize this is divine service, this is divine work. In any way that I have the capacity to help any and everyone that is meant to be in my space and to receive my medicine or your medicine, make it happen, right? Make it happen. Work with them. So, yeah, that's what I want to say about that. So, that's a good one. The next one is love and light theater. Yes, spiritual theater. And we talked about that a little bit. So, positivity, right? False positivity. Be positive, right? All of that to save face and to go along to get along, all the while lacking authenticity, all the while not being able to speak up or expressing how you really feel because you're supposed to be positive, right? False hierarchies, which we talked about, the gurus, the shamans, the grid workers, the light workers, etc. People who may have got some training or they may have got a certificate, right? But because it sounded good, because they wanted that ego feed. Oh, look at me, I'm a guru, I'm a shaman, right? And that's not everyone, but it's definitely a lot. Unfortunately, I'm not saying that everyone who calls themselves a guru or a shaman is not that. What I am saying is that a lot of people get these titles and get these certificates or get these trainings because, for one, it sounds good. It gives them a false sense of pride in this, again, egoic hierarchy that, look at me, I'm so wise, I know this, I'm a Kundalini teacher, etc. But again, you haven't really, for one, got the true teachings, right? Or the true training, especially here in America. I mean, like, don't get me into that. The appropriation and it's just a mess. The people who, and I'm not trying to judge anyone. I think people who, if you're called to learn more about whatever it is, but you have to respect the culture. You have to respect its indigenous wisdom, its ancestral wisdom. And also you have to tune in to see, is this again just an ego feed, or is this truly a soul calling? Do I have some type of lineage into this as well? Like, meaning like galactic lineage or soul lineage, depending on how your soul has been incarnated in this human experience. Like, really tuning in to see, is this divinely guided, or is this just something that sounds good and is going to give me, a false sense of like I'm better than other people or I'm so important, right? Again, while lacking embodiment and while lacking true wisdom of what you're teaching. And so that's really important. So people can have the credentials or some knowledge, but again, they lack that depth, they lack that wisdom. And you can see this really in how they live and how they treat people, and also the condition of the people that they attract. Like, what is the quality not only of their lives, but who they are being. Always go back to who you are being. That is going to be very, very telling beyond what you've manifested, right? And that's why I say it's a manifestation trap. And we're going to talk about that on actually my next video. Another one is following what's trendy or seems cool or gives people a false sense of power, spiritual supremacy, and what I notice about people who do this, who need that, again, that ego feed and the titles and the certifications and the learning, right? Who are truly doing that for the ego feed. And maybe there's some purity there, right? Maybe there's some good intentions. They want to help people, etc. But again, it's not truly divinely guided. It's ego led, right? And what I notice is that they attract very desperate people, like people who are so lost and so vulnerable, and people who are really like dying to belong, dying to fit in. Like they really have no dominion over self, no true like embodied self esteem, or at least enough self esteem to again question things, and not going in every place being a skeptic. That's not what I'm saying, but just to trust yourself and to know yourself. And a lot of these people who are the followers, right, the minions of the new age light worker, right, the light worker movement, oh my goodness, which is a mess. These people have been traumatized, a lot of them, and very deeply brainwashed. And so again, they hop from, what I want to say is like a cult. It's like a cult. They hop from one cultish mentality to the next, to the next, to the next, trying to fit in instead of creating their own lane. And I'm not saying we're not supposed to have community, but when I say creating your own lane, not trying to fit in with whatever sounds good or has some momentum or has some popularity or has, like I said, that spiritual glamour, but people who are actually taking the time to do the inner work and being very, very discerning with the type of people and the type of communities and the type of so called spiritual teachers and leaders that you support, right? You have to really, really tune in. I'm telling you, you have to tune in. We have to stop lying to ourselves because, again, when we're so caught up in fitting in, then when we try to fit in, then we won't actually know ourselves. We won't love ourselves. We won't be ourselves because we're trying to fit in, which means you're not, when you're fitting in, you're conforming, right? And so that's really, really important. And to know that a lot of these so called leaders in the spiritual community, just like in religion, have been very exploitative in nature, and they literally thrive off of followers. They thrive off of having minions, right, who simply can't and they won't think for themselves. So these are people who need someone to show them the way. Again, they rather do that and to follow people. That's why we have a world of followers, right? And the influencer culture, excuse me, turning a lot of people off the influencer culture because they haven't learned to surrender to their own process. They haven't learned to stop comparing their lives. Or they're trying to, again, trying to find, what's so interesting is coming through right now. It's like we're always trying to find the way rather than just living our life. Right? We're always trying to find the way. I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that. And maybe that's part of living your life too. Maybe that's the paradox. But at the same time, it's like still a form of escape, still a form of like, I'm trying. People just try too much. They try too hard rather than following their heart and their soul. We can get so much further in life when we can do that, right? And I know it's easier said than done, but that's where the shadow work comes in. And that's, that's, we can do it. We can do it. You just have to trust yourself enough. And again, going back to that spiritual glamour, they caught up in the way things look. Again, how many followers people have, how popular they look, the spiritual glamour, etc., rather than how it feels. And this is another thing. It's become a popularity contest in the spiritual community, which you can, like I said, it's almost like high school. I always go back to that high school, whether you're in the workplace or wherever you're at, where you see those false hierarchies and people who you can just tell they want to feel important. So, and we're all important. And there's nothing wrong with loving yourself and, what's the word, like where you're hyping yourself up, right? Where you're hyping yourself up, and I don't even want to say putting yourself on a pedestal, but where you just think highly and know highly of yourself. We should all feel that. That is not, to me, like false ego. We should do that. But again, where you're doing it, it's like, look at me, I'm above you, you're down here. And we see that so much, and people don't have to say it. The energy speaks for itself. So tune in and pay attention to those popularity contests in the so-called spiritual communities and that spiritual glamour and then those false hierarchies. That's something to really, really pay attention to. And again, people who don't really have the divine guidance and knowing, they're just doing something to get that ego feed. So pay attention to that. The third one is new age spirituality tropes. So there is an epidemic again of a lack of trusted, loving, and inclusive communities. So again, we're seeing cliques, we're seeing drama, we're seeing hierarchies, we're seeing lack of integrity, we're seeing a lack of diversity, and we're seeing a lack of devotion and true unconditional love that is required to truly call yourself any type of leader. You cannot call yourself a leader if you're not leading with kindness, if you're not leading with care, if you're not leading with authenticity and truth according to how you truly feel and what you know in the moment. And then also taking accountability ourselves. You got to remember, we're not always going to get it right. I've said things before and done things before that where I look back, I'm like, that was a little cringe. But I did it, but that was at my level of consciousness at that time, or I didn't say it in a way that was as loving. Even though I may have had good intentions, I didn't say it or do something in a way that was just the optimal, it's just who I truly am as a person, right? And that's where I take accountability. That's where I have self awareness. And that's where I continue to grow and evolve. So, those are the true leaders and teachers, as people who can truly take accountability and have self awareness and continue to evolve. Discernment with who and what you are channeling is huge, in what other people are channeling and connecting to. Again, so many, and this is a whole nother topic, like I said, in the duality and spirituality series, where we talk about, psychics or psychosis and channeling and lack of discernment. You always don't know what people are channeling or who they're channeling. Like I said, they could say it's an archangel or whoever, and it could be an imposter, right? We have to remember that the way evil has been able to dominate this planet is because of false light. You have to remember that it affects every aspect of our world, of our society. And how else can the evil have been so successful in brainwashing and dominating the masses if it didn't, to some degree, cosplay as a love and light being? So remember that not everybody that's channeling something, or like I said, it doesn't matter who they say they're channeling. You have to have the utmost in that channel, or that entity could be, like I said, cosplaying as a love and light being and leading that person into more distortion, more illusion, more delusion, and down the downward spiral to the point where they're looped and they're not really ascending, or some people say in the spiritual communities nowadays, ascending. I really resonate with that, because to me, it's all about going within. So, yeah, just pay attention and don't just take everything that people say as a channel as like they're really channeling a higher benevolent love and light being. No, they could be channeling a distorted being that's also not organic and not truly benevolent and not truly embodied and not truly on the ascension path. So that's something to really, really pay attention to. And that's why we have to cultivate our own intuitive gifts, our own claircognizant, clairaudience, clairsentience, clairgustance, all of the above, right? And obsessed with manifestation. So this is a spiritual trope, and again, a topic in itself, a whole video in itself. And the way people can see that the manifestation trap is truly a trap is that the results are not sustainable, people are still not happy, and it's not always consistent. And like I said, there's a lot of distortion in those teachings too that I've gotten out of, and I'm so grateful because it's been so liberating. It's the comparison trap. It's just so much. And like I said, we're going to get into that in another video. So getting out of the manifestation trap where you're learning to just surrender to your own unique journey is huge. And also people who are too focused on materializing the material world, right? yeah, and I get it. We're in this human experience, and there's nothing wrong with having those nice material things, but again, the lack of focus on who you are becoming as a soul, how you're ascending, how you're evolving, how you're connecting deeper to your oversoul, how you're activating your 12 strand DNA, right? So, evolving in this divine human experience as a soul rather than what you can get in terms of material, which is huge. And a lot of people don't understand is that all your needs will still be met and more, not from just like barely making it, like literally the true natural state of humanity and the world and the planet and the universe is abundance, it's overflow. But we have to get into alignment, higher alignment, right? And also spiritual bypassing. There's a lack of holistic practice, right? It's always focused on one particular area. And there's nothing wrong with that because a lot of times we don't want to be so scattered where we are trying a whole bunch of different little things and we haven't really mastered anything, right? What they say, a jack of all trades, but a master of none. So that happens a lot in the spiritual bypassing in the spiritual community because you want to try all these different things. And there's, again, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that because a lot of times you need to do that to see, like, okay, I need to hone down or hone in and be devoted to this particular path and this one path. However, even in that one path, you have to understand, we're just like I said with the yoga example, you have to make it holistic. When I say you have to, you don't have to do anything. But what I am saying and what I do know is that holistic health is the true spiritual wealth. It is the true wealth of all things. So whatever you're doing, whatever path you're taking, if you're not working on your mind, your body, your spirit, and your emotional health, then what are you doing, right? We tend to skip certain things. So people will be masters at crystals, right? They'll be masters at, even like I said, working out or their body. They'll be masters at the breath. They'll be masters at channeling. But then other parts or areas of their life is unfulfilled and it's not cultivated, it's not nurtured, and it's not nourished. So that's a form of spiritual bypassing, is looking at spiritual practices as a quick fix, right? With no integration of the lessons or even how to integrate them, as I said earlier, or how to embody them. And then another big spiritual bypassing is, again, repeating, mimicking information. And we've all done it. Most of us have done it to some degree. If you haven't done it, kudos to you. Okay. We try to get on your level. Okay. And we are getting on that level of, again, being a direct source of knowledge. And to be crystal clear, it doesn't mean that we cannot have spiritual teachers or people who inspire us or whatever they call themselves. It doesn't matter if they call themselves a shaman, a teacher, a guru. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you have to have that discernment with who you're working with and who you're being. And we are supposed to learn from each other. There are people who have, again, more spiritual wisdom, more spiritual embodiments, more spiritual knowledge than others. And that's just part of the human experience. And that's beautiful. We can all learn from each other and ultimately go back to the source, which is in your heart, which is in your soul. So you can discern and you can make the next steps, you can make the next moves, you can decide what is truly best for you and how you want to live your life, and also what is true. So that's really important. Pay attention to people who just repeat what they've heard, or, and even with me, don't just repeat. Even if you're listening to this and this resonates, which I'm sure it's going to resonate with so many of you, but it's not about just repeating or hearing what I say. No, take what resonates, and I always say this, make it your own. One thing about me, I don't want to repeat nothing that nobody else is saying. I've always been like that. Even if I've done it to some degree, it was because I resonated with the wisdom, but I would always make it my own because I never want to copycat. Like, it doesn't feel good. You feel so much better about yourself when you can be authentic and true and have your own intelligence, your own wisdom, right? Your own embodiment, not just repeating what other people say and coming back to tell others what you heard somebody else say, but you have no real understanding of it or understanding of it. That doesn't make any sense. So Trust yourself and be yourself, and that will be so liberating to you. Another thing is moving from spiritual practice, ideas, and programs to another, again, with no real devotion or self mastery. So I do realize I'm repeating some of the things I said earlier because I tend to jump the gun, so to speak. So bear with me, but I have to emphasize this again, is that, when you're trying a bit of everything with no grounding, with no devotion, with no understanding or self mastery in at least one area, then you become scattered and you become looped and you become distorted, and your energy is pulled in all these different directions because you haven't learned to do one step at a time, right? One step at a time. After the one comes the two, after the two comes the three. I mean, we have to take those baby steps, so to speak. And again, these are kindergarten knowledge. And I get it. A lot of times we get so curious and so excited. We want to try this, we want to try that. And again, there's nothing wrong with it. But as you evolve spiritually, all that means is that when you evolve within yourself, when you know yourself, when you trust your intuition, etc., you'll be able to hone down into one thing at a time, so that way you can truly be in service in a way that's meaningful, that's sustainable, that is grounded, it has a strong solid foundation, and everything else will flourish from that, right? And you'll be guided when you're called to take the next step or to move into this direction or whatever, but just learning to really hone in on what you really are called to do or interested in, and then mastering that, right? Embodying that, learning that, and then seeing what blossoms from that, which is really powerful. Another thing is I want to talk about some examples of spiritual tropes in spiritual teachings. So one is that everything happens for a reason. Yes, everything happens for a reason for sure, but this is also oversimplified. It's way too oversimplified. There's a lot of nuance into why things happen. And so when we say everything happens for a reason, what is that reason, right? Going deeper into that, and not just saying things like, oh, everything happens for a reason, but let's say somebody's going through a really tough time, a really traumatizing time. Or let's give an example of somebody who may have had a family member that, someone whose family member got offed. That's the word I'll say. And for those that understand what I'm saying, you get what I'm saying. So someone whose family member is no longer here. If somebody came up to you and your family member is no longer here, something happened to them that was really bad and they transition, and somebody told you everything happens for a reason, how would that make you feel? It's just not an appropriate response, even though everything does happen for a reason, agreed. But there's so many underlying teachings in that, and understandings in that, and lessons, and we need to, and it also, when we say that, a lot of times we can lack that compassion and empathy that a lot of people, we all need, right? So that's an example of a spiritual trope, a trope in spiritual teachings. Another one is you create your own reality. This is huge. We do create our own reality, but what we fail to realize is that we all co-create this reality together. So I can be creating my reality over here, but guess what? Everybody else that's unconsciously or consciously creating their reality is affecting my reality as well, whether we like it or not. This is part of being interconnected. This is part of the human experience. We are all one. So when we say things like you create your reality, yeah, I do. And the divine is always on our side, especially when we can see that divine within us. And at the same time, we're all co-creating this reality. We all are playing a part. So I can do all the right things, right? And manifest and do this and do that. And when I say manifest again, that word is kind of getting a little cringe in my vocabulary. So, but you get what I'm saying, where we're creating our reality. But if someone interfaces with my field in my experience, and they're creating their reality, right, that could be involved in some distortion, I would be a fool to say that that does not in some way somehow affect my reality if they are mingling in my field, mingling in my life, mingling in my whatever it is, right? So we all co-create this reality. So it's this in that. Yes, you do co create your reality, but we all are co creating this reality. And that would help us to free us and take some of the weight off of like, oh, I have to co create my reality. Or if this happened to me, oh, I created it. No, maybe you did, but maybe you also didn't. Maybe it happened because there's just some toxic people in your life, or things happen, and it just really helps to wake us up to have those boundaries and discernment, and to just see how we're all playing a pivotal role in the experience and the quality or lack thereof in this life. So pay attention to that. Another one is trust the universe. We forget the pivotal role we play in, again, creating our own experience, our life, and trusting ourselves. And when we say trust the universe, we also forget that we are the universe and that action is necessary. So trusting the universe to me means trusting myself and taking action steps where aligned. The next one is don't judge, right? This is a big one. I hear people saying, don't judge others, or nobody's perfect. Oh my God. That has literally become so annoying to me because although it's true, we are not supposed to be judging each other or condemning others. Absolutely agree with that. And the problem is we don't have a true understanding or understanding of what that means. So when we say don't judge, it's not supposed to be like where you have a lack of trust of your own intuition, where something does not resonate with you. That's not a judgment. You have the right to say, you know what, this is not aligned. My intuition tells me this is not of love, this is not healthy, whatever it is, right? And I'm going to back up. I'm sending love to this person, but I want nothing to do with this person or this way of life or this way of thinking or this ideology or this information or whatever it is, right? It's not a judgment. When you trust yourself and you honor what no longer resonates. And also when people say don't judge, it lacks accountability. Like truly, it gives so many people excuses and the fuel to keep doing things that are out of alignment and could be very harmful and hurtful to not only themselves but to others. And so when we say don't judge, we have to understand that we still need to have accountability, and we still need to have self-reflection often. So when we use these cliched tropes or nobody's perfect, again, creating excuses, we know nobody's perfect, and nobody is in this human experience. And you're also perfect because you have the ability to reconnect to your oversoul, the divine within you, and to make a change for the better. We always have that opportunity, no matter what we're going through. And I know easier said than done, but it's possible. And the last one to close it out is the math ain't mathin', okay? So again, the quality of life in the inner reality of a lot of people in the so-called spiritual community is in constant shambles. And mind you, I too have had loops of my life being in constant shambles. I don't think this necessarily means that you're not a spiritual person or you're not doing something right. I think what it really comes down to is that we have a lot of things we're clearing just being human. You have to understand this is lifetimes of programming, lifetimes of trauma. Even if you don't believe in lifetimes, like what's carried on in the DNA, epigenetics talks about this, what your ancestors, what your mom, what your father have carried down into the DNA. All these have a huge effect on how we show up in the world and what we experience, etc. Even with our brain, those experiences with neuroplasticity have a lot to do with, again, our output and our input in the world, and how we process information, and literally how we live life and how we perceive life. And so, you know, we have to understand, and this goes kind of back to the manifesting, is like where the math ain't mathing in terms of the quality of life. What we forget is that with manifesting, it's truly about the day to day experience, the moment to moment experience. We're always manifesting in every single moment, from our thoughts, our actions, our emotions, our feelings, and also our ability to process information properly, and to have a true understanding of the lessons and the experiences of life, and to have that direct divine guidance. That's all part of the true manifesting, is in the day-to-day, moment-to-moment experience. Not so much about I want to manifest $1 million and have the perfect partner, etc. And again, all of that is beautiful, but it's in the day-to-day experience and in the moment. And we have to realize that our entire life is a manifestation. It really is. And it's always about the now. And so living in distortion, again, with no true understanding and oversoul connection, that's huge. Again, when I say oversoul connection, all I'm saying is that direct connection to the divine. And our oversoul is, I would say, the highest aspect of it's beyond the higher self. So there is a difference between the higher self and the oversoul. The higher self is more about the best self of you, how you incarnate in this planet, like the best avatar version of yourself. But the oversoul is not physical. That is the eternal you beyond the physical form, that's directly connected to the to source. And of course, the divine is the divine of all, the totality of all, right? And so we have to get out of living in that distortion. And the only way you're going to know that you're living in distortion is through self awareness, is to realize when the math ain't mathin', so to speak, meaning the quality of life ain't quality all the time. And when I say quality, it doesn't mean that you're not going to not go through things, even if you are on the right path. That's part of the clearing. That's part of the shadow work. Speaking of shadow work, a lot of people have done surface level shadow work. Again, they think the shadow work is repeating a mantra, or which I heard another beautiful spiritual teacher say, which had me laughing. Some people think they're doing shadow work because they burned a letter. It's like, no. I mean, those are, again, assistive tools. They can help, be very helpful. But if you're not feeling the burn, meaning like you're feeling the fire, feeling those ego wounds, feeling that trauma, processing through it, getting the support where you need to really sit and to feel. And when you're highly triggered, I mean, you ain't doing no shadow work if you don't know how to sit with them triggers, if you don't know how to feel that rage to the point where you feel like you're about to lose your s, right? You're about to lose your head, lose your life, lose your mind. And allow yourself to really go deeper into that and to get to the nitty gritty of things, and then also get support where needed. Sometimes we all need that support. And I wouldn't say sometimes, we all always need the support, whether the support comes directly from your oversoul, your guides, or with trusted people who can help us. But truly, the shadow work is being able to sit with those really, really uncomfortable feelings. And a lot of people, again, with the spiritual bypassing, it's always about what makes us feel good. I want to do the sound healing, I want to do that. And again, that's great, but you also got to feel that pain. You really do. You can't keep escaping it. And so that's important. And then waking up past illusions can be very uncomfortable for many. In most cases, reality shattering. So as you're on this spiritual path, a lot of times, as you're becoming more aware of the, like I said, the duality in the world, the distortions in the world, things that are out of alignment, it can be reality shattering, meaning like it can make you lose friends, so to speak, which you're not really losing anybody. It can make you get out of certain relationships. It can make you get out of certain positions in a job. It can make you change your entire lifestyle, literally down to your hair, to your body, to the way you think, the way you show up, etc. It can be reality shattering. And a lot of people, they don't have the capacity to surrender. Not that they don't have the capacity, they can, but they're not evolved yet to surrender fully to that reality shattering shift. And because of that, they run, right? They run back to comfort zones. And for some people, religion has been the comfort zone. And it can literally feel like when you're in those, what some people would say, a dark night of the soul, it can feel like you're dying. It can literally feel like you're dying. All of your wounds can come to the surface. And a lot of people, unfortunately, they need that quick fix, or their ego, I should say, their wounded ego needs that quick fix. I need to feel good now. I need to have some type of validation now. I need someone to validate my existence now, right? All the while still spiritually bypassing, all the while not really connecting to their oversoul, all the while lying to themselves, because they really just didn't allow the process to unfold the way it should. And so it can be very lonely at times, although these are some of the most ideal times to be introspective and to lean deeper into your self care and your self love. And this is how you really break through the veil of all illusions, not as a constant fix to fix yourself, right? Even though we are, in a way, fixing ourselves, we're evolving ourselves. So that's another thing people say to try to sound so spiritually evolved. It's like, I don't always want to fix myself. And I get it. Trust me. Not even about fixing yourself, but in a way, you are fixing yourself. You are evolving. You are putting yourself back together, that fragmented self back together. And so yeah, so that way you can truly be in a higher alignment and be more evolved no matter what happens in life. And another thing, too, this is really huge, is we've lost the basics and fundamentals of life we have as a society, and especially in the spiritual community. Go back to the basis, which I always call kindergarten knowledge. A lot of people forget that it's just about being kind, it's about being caring, it's about having slow moments where you're present, where you can drink your tea or eat your food and be in the moment with it, not being distracted from each present moment. It's about prioritizing family, prioritizing your connection with the divine, prioritizing your connection with yourself, reaching out to loving friends, loving people, and they should be reaching out to you too, right? I believe fully and I know in reciprocity. Those are the things that matter in life, is a simple hi, how are you doing? I'm thinking about you. I care about you. We all deserve that. And if we're not receiving that, then it's time to shift. It's don't have a pity party. I mean, feel the emotions where you may, feel the sadness, but again, if we can't even have the basics with family and friends and care and concern, then I don't even say we're out of alignment, but maybe we are by even allowing those type of people in our life. And sometimes we got to speak up and just maybe even share how we feel. And then other times it's just intuitively like, let me move on from this relationship. I've outgrown this relationship, or this relationship doesn't resonate with me anymore or serve me anymore. So, I mean, you will know. That's why it's important to tune in with yourself on what matters, right? The little things, communication, right? Kindergarten knowledge, saying thank you, being grateful. Again, celebrating people that you love that also celebrate you. That's how it's supposed to be. Honoring people. Don't be jealous, be inspired. People that inspire you and that make you feel good, show them honor, show them praise, right? I'm not saying to kiss anybody's behind, but show them love. That's the way of the human being. And we forgot the kindergarten knowledge, making sure everyone feels seen, everyone feels heard, everyone feels valued. So important. Again, we're missing all of that, too busy trying to be so deep that we don't even have the basics down, right? So we have a long way to go in the spiritual community, and there's a lot of cognitive dissonance, meaning that when the truth is right in your face, we try to make excuses for it, because we're not trusting ourselves, trusting our intuition, and also just trusting what we see in person. What a spade is a spade. What they say, call a spade, right? Sometimes things are just very face value. You don't have to be intuitive. It's just in your face. It's very face value to show you that, look, this is, like I said, not of love. This is out of alignment, and I don't want anything to do with it. And when I say staying looped, it's staying trauma bonded, having no self authority, no self awareness, and still in the herd mentality, the group thinking mentality. That's another trope of in the math ain't mathin' in the spiritual community, is that people want to fit in into the herd and they want to fit in. And remember, we're all supposed to be standing out, meaning being authentic, being individuals, trusting ourselves, and then coming together in unity and harmony. And if we were truly, honestly, really being all authentic and truly connected to source, we all would be in harmony. Truly, it would be easy, no matter the uniqueness, no matter the diversity, no matter the different variations of how we all show up in the world. We truly would still be able to live in harmony and respect each other without all the cattiness, the pettiness, all the drama, all the, just the foolishness that human beings, participate in. And so let's close this out. Is that some people feel like because spirituality didn't work, that they are sinning, and that in reality, they just, again, spiritually bypassed. And they fell for a lot of the false spiritual teachings or ideologies, like so many of us have to a degree. And so religion feels very familiar to some, and also feels, again, like a safe space. And these, again, are people who have not cultivated the capacity to go deeper. Because, again, spirituality for me is not a box, it's not anywhere sort of a religion. To me, spirituality is freedom. It's the ability for me to explore myself, to explore my thoughts, to explore every aspect of my being without being over analytical or trying too hard or anything. For me to feel free. If I want to rest, I rest. If I want to go deeper, I go deeper. And profound self awareness, profound accountability, and getting out of our own way. That is really, to me, what spirituality is the ability to explore yourself with no boundaries, to explore life with no rules, boundaries, or anything. Of course, you want to have that integrity. You want to have that harmony. That's an innate compass from your heart and your soul that will come natural the more that you work on yourself holistically. And so, because a lot of people have been re-traumatized by new age spirituality, people feel they have sinned. They feel like, damn, this ain't working, so I must go back to Jesus. I must go back to Allah. I must go back to whoever, and Buddha, whatever, right? And again, no judgment, but I'm just saying, and it really sucks I have to say no judgment. It's really annoying, and I'm annoying myself actually by saying that, but I have to say it because I know a lot of people want to distort what you're saying, and that's their issue. But yeah, the problem is that you're running back to these things that you knew in the first place were not giving you true solace, true inner soul liberation, true freedom, and true dominion and knowing of thyself. And it's just a comfort zone. It's all you know. So I think a lot of people have been traumatized by new age spirituality, and I completely understand it. It's been a bit traumatizing for me myself, and I've gotten out of that. I don't subscribe to any new age nothing. I want to go back to the source. I want to go back to the original. I want to go back to the basics, to the foundation. And a lot of times, like I said, there's a power in simplicity, which I probably didn't say that. I don't know why I always say that. I do actually know why I say that, because I've talked about these things in other conversations, and then I'll say it here as if I've said it in this video. So my apologies for saying, like I said, when I didn't say it in this video. So forgive me. A lot of people don't know where they're going from here, and they go to what is so familiar. And a lot of religious people will see people who are living in illusion and delusion and distortion in spiritual communities, and they'll say, well, I told you so. Like, Jesus is the way. Repent, give yourself back to God, right? As if you're just this big sinner for just trying to, like I said, figure out life, figure out yourself, and just trying to be happy. Really, that's what it is. People just want to be happy. People want to feel good. That's all that is. And as if they're, it's just so hypocritical, as if religious people are living some type of better life than so-called spiritual people, right? It's just a whole bunch of nonsense. And what I've also learned is that no matter what you call yourself, spiritual or religious or whatever, again, it goes back to who you're being. Because there's people who are so-called religious that have beautiful hearts, way more than people who call themselves spiritual and call on Christ consciousness or channel Archangel Metatron or Lord knows who else, right? And they are just more loving. They're more kind. They're more open. They're more peaceful. And then sometimes more so-called spiritual people can be a lot more loving and kinder than religious people. It's not a competition of who's the most kindest, who's the most loving. But the point is that it doesn't matter what you call yourself. Again, it's who you're being. So what people don't realize is that all along, it wasn't the religion or it wasn't the new age spirituality. It was you all along. So, with that, I'll end it here. I hope that gives you all some perspective and understanding that it's not about going from this to that, back to this or that or this. You can do whatever you want to do, right? It's your life. However, I encourage you all to just go deeper within yourself, to explore where you're called to explore. Please stop trying to fit into a box, whether that's a spiritual box or a religious box or whatever box you want to call it. It's about being free. It's about questioning things. It's about exploring. It is about being curious, but it's also about being devoted. It's like I said, it's about everything I talked about. It's about what you want to do. It's about following your heart, following your soul. And if something doesn't feel right, it's not right. So I understand why people are getting out of the new age spirituality, but I would ask you to question yourself, does religion feel right? Especially if you already got out of it before. Yeah, it can create a lot of psychosis when we are in those loops, right? Those infinite loops, when we are really truly eternal, vast, spacious, conscious beings. So just tune into yourself. So, with that being said, I want to thank you all so much for being here. I know this was a really, really good topic, and I know it was lengthy as I knew it would be, but I'm sending you all so much love. I thank you all so much for just sticking with me, whoever's meant to stick with me. I want to know, does this resonate with you? What do you think about this topic? Have you also been not necessarily even traumatized by new age teachings, but have they felt off to you? What has your experience been in the spiritual communities or even spirituality on your own journey? I would really like to know that. So, yes, please like, please share, please comment, please subscribe. If this resonates, share this video with others who you think this would really be beneficial to. And stay tuned because there's definitely more where this came from. And I definitely cannot wait to talk to you all in the next video. So, I'm sending you all so much love. Thank you for your patience with me, especially with my repetitive, just, I don't know what that is. Maybe I got some type of disorder. I don't know, where I repeat myself a lot. But also, I know what needed to be said was said, and I put a lot of emphasis in on my teachings, on my wisdom, and what I feel called to share. So I love you all so much. Please take care of yourself. Take it easy. Get all the help you need. Just to be quickly vulnerable, I'm going through a lot right now with my son. He's going through, I don't know, some changes. I feel like he's had a lot of trauma in his life, especially dealing with the drama and trauma between me and his father. And I'm doing the best I can as a single mom to take care of him, but he needs a lot of love right now. He's literally having a mental breakdown. And it is very stressful for me as a mom because I love my son so much, but I don't know what to do sometimes. And maybe that's the beauty, is not knowing what to do and then reaching out for help. And excuse me, it's really caused me to reach out, get out of my comfort zone and really get more support than what I've been doing for myself. And I know things will come full circle. I'm surrendering, I'm letting go where necessary, and I'm truly advocating for my son. So just pray for me. And I'm praying for you all too. Take it easy. And I know my son's going to get through it, but my poor baby, he's really just broken through some traumatic events that have occurred in his life between me and his father, and just what's going on internally within him. Like, he's been through a lot, and he has level 3 autism, if for those that don't know, but we're going to get through this. So yeah, please pray for us. Things will get better, and things will get better for you too if you're going through anything. I love you all so much, and I will talk to you all soon. Peace.